1942 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. 1942 is a Capcom classic. Helped put Capcom on the map. Probably wouldn't even know this company. They might not even have the funds to make Street Fighter 2 if it were not for 1942. A great arcade classic from 1984. It came out in the arcades. 1985, I believe, was the Nintendo release. Both are a ton of fun. Never got to play the arcade cabinet that I remember, but I've definitely played this over and over. Blast to play. Can't get enough. I'm going to keep shaking it at you until you respect it. Okay, that's enough. Seriously, it was a great game. It was also followed by a sequel for the NES, 1943, The Battle of Midway. I'm pretty sure this came out in 86 or 87. Both are timeless classics, a ton of fun to play. I'm going to talk about the history of the game, I'm going to talk about the controls, we're going to talk about gameplay, we're going to get into it all. We're going to find out why this game is such a classic and why it helped put Capcom on the map. 1942 is a vertically scrolling shmup in which you take control of a fighter plane referred to simply as the Super Ace. I guess the Lockheed P-38 Lightning just didn't have the same appeal to it. Anyway, gameplay is simple and straightforward. Take off from the battleship, shoot down a bunch of enemy planes, and land on another battleship, all the while trying to explode as little as possible. You receive bonus points for not spending your evasive rolls and picking up power-ups, in which there are 4, but we'll get into that later. Its modified style of being a Space Invader clone that's based loosely on actual history is very much part of the appeal of this game, and I recommend that everybody who calls himself a retro gamer give this one a try. Heck, even if you're not, play this game. Do yourself a favor, go out, find somebody who does have a copy of it, make friends with them, start hanging out at their house, pop this bad boy into their Nintendo, sit down, grab a controller, and definitely dig in to a nice, big, heaping helping of 1942. Trust me, you'll thank me later. Before we actually dive in and play the game, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the controls for 1942. Very simple layout, obviously, NES, only 2 buttons. Steer yourself with the D-pad, simple as it gets. B button for firing, A button for your special roll maneuver. Gives you limited invulnerability, essentially, gets you out of the way of enemy fire, out of the way of enemy planes, until you complete the loop. Once the loop is completed, you're right back to the basic gameplay. Again, very simple, very straightforward. There's really no way you can mess this up. Okay, so you know the controls, and you've seen a little bit of gameplay footage. So let's talk power-ups and get them out of the way. As stated earlier, there are 4 different power-ups that each have different effects. In order to get any power-up, you must first shoot down a series of red planes that fly across the screen in varying patterns. If you shoot them all down, you will be left a power-up where the last plane was shot down. As you can see here, I've acquired the gray power-up, which gives you 2 sidekick planes, as I like to call it, increasing your firepower and your range in which you cover the screen with bullets. Here you'll see I acquired the green power-up, which basically doubles your amount of fire. You go from firing 2 bullets to 4 bullets. Definitely comes in handy when you got a lot of enemies coming at you and you gotta take them out of the sky. Now you'll notice I acquired the red power-up. The red power-up is hit or miss with me. It basically just adds an extra barrel roll to your arsenal of rolls. Useful, yes. Game-breaking, never. And now, the white power-up. The white power-up basically destroys all enemies that are visible on the screen. It can come in handy when you're outnumbered, but mostly it comes in handy when there's a lot of the bigger, harder to kill planes on the screen. Okay, so we've seen some gameplay, we've seen the power-ups, we know the controls, we know what the game's about. But are there any bosses? Of course there's bosses. But unfortunately there's only about 3 or 4 in the game, and they all look exactly like this guy here. Just a big plane showering you with bullets, you just gotta shoot his engines and, knock him out of the sky. 1943 would adopt this as well, but it was a little bit more difficult to take the plane down, and I do believe they've mixed the bosses up a little bit more. Most people think Capcom, they think Street Fighter, especially when you're talking arcade cabinets. But that wasn't so much the case in 1984 when this game came out. At the time, Capcom wasn't even well known here in America, and 1942 really helped to put them on the map as a great game-making company. Most people really would only come to know Capcom after the popularity of Street Fighter 2, but early 80s arcade goers knew it more or less for the 1942 series. It really did help produce sequels upon sequels. I believe there's 5 of them in the 1940-something series now. And really probably helped Capcom make enough money to produce more arcade classics along the way, eventually leading into a very successful household release on the Nintendo Entertainment System, which is the version that we are obviously playing, in 1985. Game is revered as being one of the best titles Capcom ever put out, and I'd have to agree. I love playing this game still to this day. I'll pop this bad boy in, crack open a six-pack, and just sit back and try and get as far as I can before I either get tired or I beat the game. Which, again, adds to the replayability and the greatness that is this game. Next, I wanted to talk a little about the barrel roll. As the game progresses and becomes harder, you're definitely going to need to get really acquainted with this tactic. Not only will it save your bacon multiple times, it's really a necessity for getting through the game at all. Especially in the later levels when enemies start coming from behind you and a lot of enemy fire and planes are on the screen, it's going to be barrel roll or die, and you're really going to have to dig deep and master this technique. Alright guys, we've talked history, we've talked controls, we've talked gameplay, we've talked bosses, we've talked power-ups. But is the game fun? Is it worth your time? Yes. I can't recommend this game enough. You gotta go out, get yourself a copy, add it to your collection. You're never going to have as much fun playing this game as you are going to be if you get a buddy, both sit down, play the two-player mode, drink a couple of beers, and just laugh your asses off and have a blast. Other than that, is the one-player mode worth it? Definitely also. It's no story mode. There is no story. You're just a plane blowing other planes out of the sky, but that's what's great about it, the simplicity and the fun. Can't recommend it enough. Gotta go get yourself a copy. 1942 is just one of those games that you gotta have in your library. It's a very affordable game. Shouldn't run you very much to acquire it. I paid maybe $2.95, $3 for my copy at a local play and trade. Might run you a little more online, only if you're going to add shipping and handling and whatnot to the price. If you can find it locally, I recommend picking it up. And heck, if you really want, go ahead and order it online. It'll be worth whatever you spend on it, trust me. This was one of the first games I bought when I started my retro collection, and I still play it. I love this game. I really can't get enough. 1943, its sequel, maybe I'll do a review on that someday, but as of right now, really no plans to. It's not quite as addicting as this one, but I guess it all depends on what you're looking for. I prefer the simplicity of 1942 to the complexness of 1943. But either way, I recommend both, and I think you need to go out there, get on Amazon, or go to a store and pick yourself up a copy. Alright guys, for the sake of argument, and for those of you who haven't played the game and haven't been exposed to the music, I'm going to play a little bit of it for you right now, just so you can get acquainted with how horrible it is, so you can see that I'm not just trying to pull things out of my ass to say that are bad about this game. It's really horrendous. Alright, let's get this show on the road. Here you go. It's catchy, right? Digging that? Nod your head to it, get into it, right? Groovy. And it loops like that the whole game. That's the only track. So, now do you understand? Now do you see? You think you could listen to that for about 2-3 hours? No. Definitely recommend putting the TV on mute and putting your favorite CD in your CD player if you're going to sit down and try and beat this bad boy. Well, that pretty much wraps it up, guys. I want to thank anybody who watches. I want to thank anybody who subscribes. Definitely appreciate any support this show can get. I understand right now it's kind of a mess and not very professional looking, but I don't have a DVD recorder. I don't have a good digital camera. I have this little number here. It's whatever, but it's definitely not professional style equipment. So looking forward to maybe if the show gets a little more successful and I can get the scratch together, I'll definitely buy some equipment and do this thing right. I'd like to clean up my video segments of the gameplay and stuff like that. So regardless, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll get to see you soon.